This is an update of what is going on now that we are 35 days into the genocide and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Gaza. I have a couple of corrections. Speaking of my first video, first of all, I referred to Hamas as terrorists, and I thought about doing a whole video on the subject of who gets called terrorists and who just gets called a government or an army. But basically, the people who are not in power get called terrorists, and the people who are in power who commit the same atrocities on a larger scale are just called countries, such as the US, the UK, and Israel. A better word would be freedom fighters. This is a booktube channel where I talk about how stories are hugely impactful on our belief systems, and so I'm going to point you to Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and specifically the character of Kira and the occupation of Bajor, if you're not sure how to reconcile who the good guys and bad guys are in this situation. I don't know if that arc of the show was based on Israel and Palestine. It very much could have been. It could have also been based on the Irish or numerous other places that have been colonized and occupied. Other ways you can make sense of who the aggressors or more powerful non-underdog people are in this situation is you can look at the firepower and the funding that Israel has versus what the Palestinians have. Israel gets almost $4 billion from the US government every year, and now our government is trying to send 10 billion more on short notice. They also buy their weapons from US weapons makers, as well as developing their own tech that they then sell to other people and advertise as battle tested after they use it on the Gaza Strip, and where they had been using various weapons and bombing before October 7th. You could also look at the 75 years of history of the occupation. Zionist aggression started a little before that, but a lot of indigenous peoples of Turtle Island have pointed out that it is a very similar situation to when Europeans came to Turtle Island and started committing genocide against the people of Turtle Island so that they could take their land. Anyway, my other correction was that the siege on Gaza has actually been going on for 17 years, where very little has been let in or out via either the borders with Israel or the borders with Egypt. Now for the updates. When I last spoke to you, I believe about 1,700 Palestinians had been killed. That number is now 10,000, over 10,000. Of those, unsurprisingly, because about half the population of Gaza is children, about 4,000 of those killed have been children. The Israelis are using chemical weapons, such as white phosphorus, shooting it indiscriminately down upon Gaza. White phosphorus cannot be put out with water. It has to be muffled with something like sand. It can burn into someone's body, go dormant, and then reignite and start burning them from the inside. And it burns extremely hot. If you watch videos from reporters on the ground or from news companies such as Al Jazeera, which has multiple reporters on the ground, you will see a lot of burns on people of all ages. Shortly after I made that video, Israel bombed a hospital blew the entire thing away. Everyone inside was killed. Estimates of how many people range from 500 to 1,000. That's a war crime, by the way. So is the white phosphorus thing. And since then, hospital entrances where refugees have sheltered after their homes have been destroyed have been bombed, killing many people there who were in close quarters. The tonnage of bombs dropped has now exceeded the tonnage of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. One of Israel's government officials said, I believe to a reporter, that dropping an atomic bomb on Gaza was an option. Israel has also targeted ambulances. Other hospitals, various hospitals have had wings, buildings, and floors destroyed by bombs. Refugee camps have been targeted. Gaza is the most densely populated area in the world, and within Gaza, I'm fairly certain that these refugee camps were the most densely populated areas, and those have been bombed and many people killed there. You heard in my last video that they cut off food, water, electricity, and fuel from the outside. At this point, most hospitals have run out of fuel, meaning they have to use the little bit of light from their phones that they were able to charge in their cars to have enough light to perform surgeries. And obviously anyone on ventilators, the ventilators won't have been working. Bisan, who is one of the on-the-ground reporters I follow, said 3 days ago that 4 days before that, so about a week ago, people in her area in the northern half of Gaza completely ran out of what water stores and food stores they had. Some of it from water tanks and food stores being directly bombed by the Israelis, and some by it just having run out. And also solar panels have been targeted so that power will not be able to be gathered back. I think a week and a half ago, the telecommunication centers were destroyed by bombs. So for about 2 days, we didn't hear anything out of Gaza until people started. A few reporters had satellite phones already, and there is a way that you can send an eSIM to people in Gaza that allows them to access internet via satellite and phone via satellite, so that we can keep getting news and they can keep contacting their families. I will link that website below, but I'm pretty sure that's how we started getting contact back again. So because the clean water and food ran out, people started drinking dirty water, and that has led to entire groups of people who are using the same water source to get sick and start having vomiting and diarrhea, which, if you're not aware, those are things that dehydrate you very badly. So if you have no clean water to drink and you're in that situation where drinking just makes it worse, you will get dehydrated very quickly and will start going into organ failure. There is an article that I will find and link about how Netanyahu has refused Hamas's offer to give back the 196 or so hostages in exchange for a ceasefire, which is not surprising to most of us, because It's clear that the goal has always been to wipe the Palestinians off the face of the earth, not to rescue the hostages. So a ground invasion has started. The ground forces attacked a school, massacred a bunch of people there. There has also been a lot of violence from the Israelis in the West Bank. Why, you may ask, since there is no Hamas in the West Bank and the entire excuse for this genocide is to get rid of Hamas? Well, that would be because they know that the Western media isn't going to report on it, and therefore they don't have to worry about most of the citizens of other countries who are supporting the genocides finding out what they're doing. According to one of my sources, 5,000 men from the West Bank had been kidnapped and are being tortured. Videos have been shared by Israeli soldiers of the men being tortured, and there are various videos of them committing violence against West Bank civilians that keep coming out. One of the most harrowing videos I've watched recently is of two siblings, maybe 2.5 and 4, being taken into a hospital after their home was bombed. First, the boy comes in and he's alive. You can just barely see him blinking his eyes. And after they've set him down, as they put the stethoscope on his heart to take his vital signs so that they can start treating him, his heart stops beating. Then his sister is rushed in, and they start to take her vital signs, and you can see that her eyes are moving. But a second later, she's gone. I know it hurts to look, but it is the bare minimum that we can do. They're working so hard to let us know, speaking in at least their second language, if not their third, of English, to make sure that people who live in the countries that are funding this know what's happening. We can't just look away. Meanwhile, in our government, the only Palestinian American in Congress, Rashida Tlaib, was censured a couple days ago for criticizing the Israeli government and using the phrase "from the river to the sea," which is accurately recognized as a call for an end to the apartheid. And because Israel is an apartheid state, it is a call for the end of Israel, because it is just a bunch of colonizers committing apartheid and genocide against the indigenous peoples. And the Palestinians have a right to resist as an occupied people, which, you'll be interested to learn, is part of international law. Speaking of our government, there are now even easier ways to contact your representatives on this issue. I personally am saying I urge you to call for a ceasefire. I urge you to call for aid to be allowed into Gaza, because currently about 20 trucks have been allowed in, and they were about half full because the Israeli military went through them and took out a bunch of stuff, and for the US to stop sending military aid to Israel. I will link below, and I'll also show up here. There is a tiny URL that will take you to a Word doc that will provide you with little links, and all you have to do is click the link and it'll provide you a big long email where you just plug in your zip code, and it'll send it off to your representatives. There's also the 5 Calls app, which is for calling, and I've been told that calling is more important than emailing, which is unfortunate because I freaking hate talking on the phone, but I'm doing it anyway. And the 5 Calls app will give you a little script you can read off, and will also give you the phone numbers of the DC offices of each of your reps. And will hook you up very nicely that way. So I did that right before filming. It's also very easy to send off messages to the White House. Not that the White House gives a shit about the constituents. Yesterday I went to a protest outside Spokane's local representative, Kathy McMorris Rogers, where we yelled "Ceasefire now," and Kathy, you can't hide, we charge you with genocide, and other things like that. And from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And we had some really good speakers, one of whom talked about the links between Black liberation and Palestinian liberation. If you want to know about that in detail, everyone is recommending Angela Davis's Freedom is a Constant Struggle. I haven't read it yet. It's on hold from my library. I think that's everything I wanted to say. Thank you for watching, and please don't look away.